So to begin, I'm going to generate a new component called add trip. And then I'm going to put an add trip button on the trip listing page, which right now looks like that. You can see we've got a little div tag. There's a button with a click event that says add trip. And now I'm going to go to the component. And here I'm going to do a little more work. I'm bringing in something called the router. And if you remember, just like on Express on the back end, we used a router to control navigation, clicking of buttons, page links, and things like that. We're going to do the same thing here in Angular down on the client. So what we've got here is we've got a router module being imported. We've added a parameter to the constructor to inject the router so it's available in this component. Here's the add trip method that the button click is going to invoke, and we're going to use the router to navigate to a route called add trip. Now, instead of cluttering up the app module with routing, I'm going to create a new app router module component right here. So we'll go to app and we'll call it app router module TS. And then for now, I'm going to bring in this code. So here, the router is going to import the trip listing component, the add trip component we just made, and we've got a constant listing the route. So here's the add trip route, and it's going to pass control to the add trip component. The default path for now is going to go to the trip listing component. Now that that's done, oh yes, remember to go to app module, and we want to bring in, we've got the app routing module now being imported. And then one more thing we're going to do is right now the app component is hard-coded to inject the app trip listing selector. We're going to change that to router outlet. So now the logic for handling page navigation, including the initial startup page, is being managed in code. And it's injected in here through this router outlet reserved selector that the router outputs. And then if we go back and look at add trip, you can see right now it's pretty blank. And I'm going to cheat and grab a whole bunch of HTML that's basically the same. So there's a div tag. It's going to be a column format, and there's an add trip heading, and there's an onSubmit event, and then we have a label for the trip code and a text box with validation like we used in the previous work on the back end. And there's a name, length, start date, so all the information for a trip is here. And we've got the submit. So then if we go to the back end, let's see, grab this code, paste it in here. Notice that we're looking for the trip service add trip method. So when we initialize, just like we did on the Express backend, we're going to set up a blank form, because when you add a new trip, of course, there's nothing there. And when the user submits, we're going to validate it and then call the add trip method. In this case, we have to go back and look at the trip data, or excuse me, the trip data service. Right now there's a get trips method. We're going to put a method in called add trip. And then just to keep things a little more organized, I'm going to add another variable. So API is the base URL, but the trip information is going to have the API base plus trips on it. So instead of calling all of these methods, and then this is going to just become, so we're going to change it to this.trip URL. And if I did everything correctly, ngserve, ready to go. We land on the Traveler admin page. Here's our add trip button. And when we click it, we get to the add trip form. Okay, I've gone and filled out this form to add a new trip, and I'm going to press save. Nothing happens. Notice there's nothing going on the front end website, but if we look at the back end, you can see that a post operation was sent to API trips, and it received an HTTP status of 404, which is not found. And that's because I forgot about the back end. So not only do we have to have the front end code to add the trip, but we need a back end method on the API to support sending that data to the trip. So I'm going to do a little cheat and paste this method in. Before I forget, I want to make sure that I export it. So we have an add trip method. And just like the get called the find method in Mongoose, this one is taking Mongoose and calling the create method with the request body. So in the front end, you can see that we sent the form data that came off of the web form into the post operation, which transmitted over to the back end. And in the back end, we're going to create a new trip, and we're setting the values for all the individual fields using the request body variables, request body code, name, length, so on and so forth. So this is the add trip method. We added the controller, but we also need to be able to define what this post method is allowed. So we're going to say post, and it's going to be the trips controller. Only we're going to call add trip. There. And you can see that we returned to the front end of the website. And that's a good sign, because here's a new trip called Pirate Lagoon. Notice the the post request returned a 201, which is created, and then when it returned to the front page, it did a get to list all the trips. So at this point, if I go and launch RoboDB, or I guess they call it Robo3T now, and we look at the Traveler database, the trips collection, view the documents, and you can see there is the data from the add operation. So adding a new trip requires, the method to add a new trip requires front-end work and also back-end work on the API side of things.